1:30. Let's do it.
Shall we start?
It's terrible.
Well, I think it's 1:30.
Clock's got.
This is a special called meeting of the Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen, November 20th. We have one item as a business item, and it's the approval of bids and award of contract. I got to pull out my glasses. Contract 2018-06, Campbell Station Inn, Phase 2.
Yes, as you said, this is contract 2018-06, Campbell Station Inn Phase 2. This is a stabilization project. It's Phase 2 of the stabilization for the Campbell Station Inn, otherwise known as the Russell House at the corner of Campbell Station and Kingston Pike. The first phase was really asbestos abatement and some roof repairs. This is a much larger project. It includes the removal of the two wings on either end of the house, as well as demolition of the dairy barn out back. Includes a lot of structural upgrades as well as masonry repointing. I guess it's repointing of virtually all of the masonry on the building. We received two bids on October 19th. I'll just read the base bids here. Merit Construction Incorporated had a base bid of $1,395,000 even, and Hickory Construction Incorporated had a base bid of $1,464,930. Now, also in the bids, there were alternate unit prices that we inserted into the bid document just so that we would have competitive prices in the event that those items were necessary for the project. So staff recommends award of project 2018-06 to Merit Construction for their low bid of $1,395,000. Also, staff would recommend that just due to the nature of the project, it's stabilization of a 180-year-old house, there is a strong likelihood that change orders may come up. Given the amount of time typically required when a change order comes up, change order request, in a project like this, we don't want to stop progress of the project while waiting for board approval. So staff would like you to include in the motion authorization to allow staff to approve change orders up to a cumulative total of $50,000. I'll defer to David if he wants to add anything to that.
No, I think Mr. Smith has categorized it well. All we're looking for is a little more latitude that because of the nature of this project on typical change orders that we would bring everything back to the board no matter what, but it may be after we have already allowed them to go ahead and start work on those change orders, but eventually the board would ratify all change orders no matter what.
I'm going to move to approve the bid and award of contract 2018-06 to Merit Construction for their low bid of $1,395,000 and authorization for staff approval of change orders up to $50,000.
I'll second it.
I don't know how to do this. This is why I did this as the original motion. I would like to amend that motion. I don't know if I could have done that in the original motion without a discussion. I would like it that we had, and we mentioned the last meeting, if you guys have change orders, I would love it if we were informed of them maybe on a monthly basis. If there was a change order, that it was brought to us just for information at one of those board meetings we have. Does that need to be part of the motion?
I mean, it certainly can be, or we can just give you a project update on a monthly basis, which is very easy for us to do as well.
Yeah, only as applicable. If you're not having any change orders, I'm not entirely sure we need a project update, but if we are having them, I think we should be informed of them. Does
Sure.
that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. That makes perfect sense, and we'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
So
Again,
if
does
you,
it?
if you would like to put that in your
Okay.
motion, then that would be
Do you think it
fine.
needs to be part of the motion, board, or
I
does?
think we can handle that internally, but it just depends on how the board feels about that issue. I mean, we can do that, not a problem at all.
Okay.
Every time we have a change order on that month end, send you an update on that.
Okay, then I think that, I think it's fine, the original motion is fine, as long as we're clear that that's what we'd like to hear.
Okay.
I do have a few questions.
I will also point out, Lee Ingram and Aaron Streeter are here with Brewer Ingram Fuller and Drew Millsaps. And I'm sorry, sir, they're here with Merritt Construction.
Okay. This phase is just for the Campbell Station Inn? It doesn't cover, does this cover the road that we're going to be putting in or the plaza that we're going to be putting in? So that's in a different phase. So when we talk about asphalt paving and seating, that's just around the general area of the house?
Correct. This is really just to get a driveway through. They're going to do a ton of construction and chewing up everything out there. This is just to get a driveway from one point on Campbell Station over to a new point on Kingston Pike,
Okay.
and then just seed and straw that area behind the house.
Okay.
Or whatever Lee has put in the bids, maybe some sod, I don't know, but there'll be some grass put out behind the house.
Okay.
When the dairy barn is removed, there will be a need to seed and straw.
Okay. The plumbing, it says it'll be removed. There will be no bathroom inside the house?
Correct.
Okay. And windows, I read a little bit on the windows, only because we're going through windows in our house. So are the windows original, or some of them original, or all of them original? Do we know where we?
Lee, do you want to answer that question?
We're going back with vinyl.
There's a lot of original window material in the building, and that's being restored. There aren't any windows that are being replaced with vinyl or aluminum or anything else, so.
Yeah, don't quote that, please.
And actually, there are some openings that used to be windows that are not now, but will be at the end of this phase. So there will be some reconstruction windows created to match the original ones as
Okay.
well. In addition to that, each window opening will get, fancy name for a storm window, a secondary glazing unit, which is a commercial grade covering. They're very inconspicuous. They not only help with energy consumption, but they help protect the original painted wood windows. And we found that the wood windows that are that old, or unless they've gotten ruined by weather or their paint has failed or something, the wood in those old windows is a lot better than the wood in new windows that we get today. So we try to keep and restore those whenever possible. That's always encouraged by the National Park Service and their standards.
So are the secondary glazing unit, is that fixed in the outside? So for emergency purposes, if we needed to get out by a window, how does that work?
Well, that's not required by code.
Okay, for historic building.
It would be if this were a residence and those were sleeping rooms.
Okay,
But for an office/museum, windows aren't required to be escapes in this situation. However, if I'm not mistaken, I think we called for 4 windows on the upper level to be venting type, so that on a beautiful day, they could actually open the storm windows and use those for ventilation.
okay.
I would like to make a suggestion at this point, because I have not had an opportunity to review the scope of the work. I didn't get it until in time to look at it before we went to Charlotte, and haven't had time to look at it since getting back. I would like to just go through this scope of the work item by item, rather than hopping and skipping around, and let's just be sure we get thoroughly covered. A lot of them we can just kind of check off quickly. Would that be acceptable to you, Alderman Pavlin?
That's fine.
I brought copies of that if anybody would like one.
Well, I think I've got it here, but
Okay.
this is the first time I've actually been able to lay eyes on it. So
Of course, this is a very generalized summary.
I realize it is, and that's
Yeah.
why I'd like to just kind of run down through it and see
Sure.
what jumps out at us. The rest of the board, you okay with this? Have y'all had a chance to review this?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen it, but I hadn't had a chance to run through it, and as I said, it's very general. So, Alderman Pavlin, could I lead off with this, or do you want
Sure.
to continue with your questions?
Those were my questions, so I'm done, so
Okay.
take it away.
Removal of existing additions as noted on drawings and adjacent milk barn, taking any necessary precautions to avoid damaging any portion of the historic house. Existing foundations shall be removed. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so you're just going to tear them off, dispose of them, remove them from the site, right? Anything there that we're going to try to salvage or anything?
No, not in those additions.
Okay. Item 2, remove asphalt paving at areas noted on the site plan and restore grades and lawns per drawings. I haven't had a chance to review those drawings, but are we altering significantly the grades around the house? What does that entail?
No significant changes in grades in this phase. There'll be some minor changes in grades around the house in the next phase, the Park and Roads project, but only to get in an accessible route to the building. In this phase, when the additions come off, there'll be some steps in the grade that'll have to be filled in to a more natural grade, such as would have been there before the additions were built.
Okay. Restore sidewalk, curb, and utilities along Kingston Pike were damaged by construction, so we're anticipating some damage. Will any be necessitated by the construction, do you anticipate?
That's kind of a note just to make sure that everyone's on alert that if damage does occur, it has to be repaired.
Will be covered, okay. Restore areas of existing masonry on the historic house that exhibit signs of spalling, splitting, cracking, or other failure. All masonry repairs shall utilize a restoration type mortar compatible with the historic masonry. Exteriors shall be repointed 100% unless noted otherwise. So spalling, splitting, cracking, are we talking about any individual bricks that are cracked or that have spaces blown off of them?
We are there, yes. The repointing refers to the mortar, and the spalling, splitting, and cracking refers to the masonry units themselves.
Okay. And where are we going to find brick to match this? How are we doing that?
The brick that we have in the scope is made by a company called Old Carolina.
Okay.
We've looked at all of the available sources for new brick that we know of that are capable of attempting to match the existing brick. We think we found a pretty decent match in texture and color, and the size on the existing building is a little bit odd. It's not the typical oversize handmade that they make, which is an 8 by 2 3/4 by 4, 8.5 by 4. These are actually 3 inches high, so the brick will be a custom-made brick for this project.
Okay, so it's going to be a handmade wood molded brick
Yes.
for the.
Yes.
You said earlier that there were going to be some other windows put in that were originally there. Will you conserve brick from that particular?
They're really, those are going in places where, for instance, an addition now has a door connection to the addition or to a porch. It's not something that's been bricked up with original brick or anything, so there's really very little salvage brick remaining. The chimney brick that was stored in the basement area has already been mostly reused in the gable repair work that was done after a storm last year. So there really isn't much salvage brick left. What salvage brick is left will be used, but there is very little. You could stack it, it wouldn't, I mean, it's probably 100, 200 brick at the most.
So the chimneys are all going to be new brick then?
Correct.
Which I've seen some pretty significant deterioration in the brick itself. It's not those brick are not in real good shape, are they?
Most of the brick are okay. Yeah, some of the brick are not original, and a few of those have spalled, especially on the back. We've called for some larger areas of brick replacement where water has splashed up on the wall over the years, and it's spalled the brick off, and they've come back and done stucco repairs on it, and that's all being replaced.
Chipped off.
Yeah, it's spalled off back there, so.
Okay, because I noticed in the basement that some of the brick actually looked like it was deteriorating. I mean, it was just like crumbly.
It
Or was
is. Yeah, that's all being replaced
Okay.
with new brick.
Okay.
Those walls that are pretty much gone down there, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I noticed there's one main bearing wall in the basement that looks like it is just collapsing or compressing, I guess would be the word.
Don't
And-
put this on the record, but I think Mr. Russell said his mother rebuilt that part of the wall. So, no offense to Mrs. Russell, but that piece of wall is being replaced.
Okay. Because I noticed that in the rooms upstairs, the walls directly bearing on it, there's some displacement in them too.
Yes, that's correct. That's why there's that crack next to the stairwell.
Right. So, how do you anticipate jacking that back up? How are you going to do that?
Well, the how will be up to merit, but the standard is to not jack it back up. The standard is to hold it in place, to snug the new structure tight to it, but not to try to move it back up. The exception to that would be the roof ridge line, which has some sway to it. And we are trying to jack that just a little bit to get the sway out of it. But the lower floors, the intent is not to jack those. We don't want to create more damage.
Yeah, that's a tricky situation there.
You have anything you want to add to that, or?
Don't want to talk about that. Build chimney tops to match historic profiles using brick to match existing sizes and textures. Includes installing metal chimney caps. Fireplaces shall not be operational. But now, are these chimneys going to be built as functioning chimneys, or are you just going to build a box up there?
No, just build a box. In fact, the chimneys on the west end pretty much collapsed into the attic when the storm went through. Those chimneys had some pretty severe corbelled offsets in them. And they actually, we thought at one time we would try to rebuild them as the corbelled offsets, and the structural engineer was pretty nervous about it. And what we decided to do was take those chimneys down on the inside of the attic to the attic floor and actually put a little composite deck platform on the top of each chimney at that level, and then rebuild a fire-treated wood framed box for brick veneer, so the chimneys will be brick veneer from that point up. Otherwise, the offsets were, I can't imagine how much more it would have cost, and I don't think it would have been nearly as strong as what the engineers proposed.
Structurally, not a good idea. Probably wasn't a good idea the way they built it in the first place. But,
Well, you hate to second guess something that's been there for 180 years.
yeah. But they did blow over, so
They
that's.
eventually did, yeah.
Okay, so there will never be fires burned in those fireplaces again. Modification of existing window openings and restoration of previous window openings to original appearance as shown on the drawings. So that's just the ones that basically were made to connect into the add-on wings. Am I understanding that correctly? Modification of
That's
existing
where the
window,
new windows will be going, yes.
which will be in the place of. There were windows there at one time. They were modified into doorways, so
That's
we're going
correct.
to make them back into. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Number 7, restoration of existing historic window frames and sashes, providing reconstruction wood windows at newly modified or exposed openings and openings currently filled with non-historic material, while retaining extant parts of historic window frames and trim to be restored, replace missing or broken glass in kind. I think we pretty much touched on that. Anybody have any more questions about the windows? Repair or replace of existing porch components. Now that porch is not original. This, are we talking about the front porch?
Front and back. They both have bad flashing to the wall, and we're replacing the flashing. We've actually given the contractor the option to replace the roof and the flashing if he would rather do that than try to patch the new flashing into the existing roof.
Yeah, the roof doesn't match the main roof anyway. So.
No, it doesn't. The rear porch is being partially demolished because it actually it isn't completely necessary to keep all of it back there. So we're keeping the part of it that's necessary to be used as an exit out of the back. So there'll be some patchwork involved in that too. And then in Addendum 1, John Householder wanted us to reinforce the handrails and guardrails on the back porch. Even though it's an unoccupied building in this phase, we discussed that it was possible that somebody could wander up there from the outside, and we wanted the railings to be pretty strong in case that happened. So
Sure.
So there are some little modifications like that being done to the existing porches, even though the hope is that one day those will be replaced with something more appropriate.
So there's nothing in this phase of the construction that's going to go back to the original. We're just basically tuning up the stuff that's been added on along the way here.
That's future. This is literally just a stabilization phase, and that
Okay.
wasn't required to stabilize.
Okay. Number 9, remove existing roofing materials and replace as noted. Install new roof sheathing. So what are we going to replace it with?
We're replacing it with a standing seam metal roof.
Okay. What was on the original building?
The original building, we think, was probably a wood shake roof. We've had a lot of discussion about whether to try to go back to that. We've actually talked to the State Historic Preservation Office about it, and they agreed with us that over time it isn't out of the question that this building could have had a metal roof at some point. It was pretty common for roofs to go back and forth. There's conjecture involved sometimes in historic preservation. For example, even if you rebuilt the front Greek Revival porch, it wouldn't exactly match the first one because there used to be an addition on the west end of the building and the porch went all the way in front of the addition. So we were trying to come up with a neutral looking roof that would have been appropriate for the late 1890s, the period when the porch photographs were taken. Since the intent was to come back and add those porches sometime, we wanted to take that sliver in time and say what would have been an appropriate roof for that period of time. We could put a wood shake roof back on if that is the pleasure of the board. We don't have evidence either way that whether it should be metal or wood. We think it would probably cost more to do the wood shake roof and certainly be more maintenance for the town over the years. So that's one of the reasons we went with the metal.
So standing seam metal, I mean, what I grew up seeing around here, and I grew up on the Clinch River, not far from here, I never saw a standing seam roof anywhere back up in these hills. Just 5E metal, just old galvanized 5E metal was all I ever saw. So I know the standing seam is kind of a gentrified upscale sort of thing, but is it historically accurate?
Well, I think I tried to answer that. I don't know that we know that anything other than a wood shake roof would be completely historically accurate.
Sure, yeah, because I'm sure the original one didn't have a metal roof on it back in the early 1800s when it was built. So how's the board feel about that? What do you want to see on the top of this thing?
I think the comment that he made as far as it'd be less maintenance to have the metal roof over a period of time, I
No
think
doubt.
would be my concern. So the metal sounds better to me.
I think it would also be easier to match when you do put the, if you did go ahead and put the porch on.
Easier to match to the metal?
Yeah.
Lee, would the metal roof be similar to the one that's on the other Russell house down the street, just about half a mile?
It's sort of, this one is a smooth pan. The drawings actually show a 12-inch wide pan with a 1-inch high seam.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually been talking to the State Historic Preservation Officer about, since we're talking about renovating this to the late 1890s instead of the earliest days of the house, maybe widening that to an 18-inch wide seam, which that might save a few bucks, actually. So it's likely if we go with standing seam, it would be an 18-inch wide seam instead of a 12-inch wide.
Why?
Because by the 1890s, wider sheets of metal were available to make the metal pans for the roofing.
So what color are we talking about?
We haven't gotten that far.
When do we decide that? When do we have that discussion?
We wouldn't try to make it, as I said, a character-defining feature. We would probably stick with something pretty neutral, like a lead gray color or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, or just galvanized, galvanized iron, which is what would have been on it. There wouldn't have been copper, I don't think.
No, we're not talking about making it look like copper or anything like that.
I know the other house down the road that the other alderman referred to me looks really out of place. Is it a green, kind of a aqua green kind of color on that one?
I don't know if it's aqua. I think it may be green, a darker green.
Yeah, it's faded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks really out of place to me. So at what point do we address that?
The color?
Yes.
How do you want to handle that?
I think it'd just be a question of how many things the board wants to have brought back to them for any kind of approval process. So if the roof is something that the board feels like is a major defining feature that you'd like some input on, it's just a matter of having a workshop on that and talking through it and making a final decision. We just need to know when that point needs to be from Lee as we're going through the process. But that's the, so if the roof is one area that the board would like some input on before we go do it, or something else in the house as we're going through this, then just let us know and we'll bring that back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a major defining and almost permanent feature that we're putting up there that we would definitely want to have some input on.
What we could do is just do a color scheme for the entire house and bring that to you.
I was thinking that'd be good, because the trim for the windows, the cornice, the roofing color, the mortar color is not going to change, obviously, in the brick, but everything else that ties into it.
The mortar color will change a little because the original mortar is concealed by a very thin skim coat of Portland cement mortar right now. So what you see there now is a little grayer than the original mortar. It was more of a river sand mortar. If you pop that top, some places no thicker than your fingernail, pop it off, you can see the original. It's a lot prettier.
Yeah.
So it'll warm it up just a little when you get it.
Yeah, that'd be good. Be good. Okay. Clean all exterior masonry, prep, prime, and paint all exterior woodwork and trim. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I guess and that would include repair or replacement of any damage to rot, that sort of thing. Did we dress that up above? Clean sashes, restoration resisting historic wood. Yeah, okay. All right. Gutters. I wouldn't think the original house had gutters on it. Did we have guttering on this one? Are we going to have gutter included in this one?
The 1898 pictures did show gutters and downspouts. They actually had them piped to a cistern, the cistern is still there. So we are planning to include half-round gutters and round downspouts.
Yeah, that's what I saw in the picture was around.
Okay, and here again, that'll be something we want to input on the color of too. We want to. That'll be a major exterior feature. Clean all exterior measure, remove and replace. Okay. Number 11, remove and replace gutters and downspouts as noted. And where is that noted?
There's a section in the specs, gutters and downspouts.
Okay. So just for our information, what are we replacing them with? Is it going to be continuous aluminum? Is it going to be galvanized iron? What?
Kynar finished galvanized,
Okay, so that'd be steel.
yes.
Okay. 12, remove all floor coverings such as carpet, replace missing areas of original flooring with plywood, temporary, clean all existing wood floors. I didn't notice where we were missing original floor. How extensive is that? What are we talking about?
There are a few places where grill changes are grill locations are changing in the floor grills, where we'll have to patch a place. And then when the abatement crew came in, they actually cut a section of flooring out rather than just taking the hazardous flooring off the existing wood. They cut the floor out and took it away. So, yeah, that's the face I made when I saw it.
When did this happen?
It was last year.
Jeez.
It's probably about 4 by 8 feet, something like that. Maybe a little bigger.
And so that all went into a landfill someplace, I guess.
So no, there's not that much of it.
So, what is that? Is that pine flooring in there?
Yes.
Are we gonna be able to find something to match that? It's probably longleaf yellow pine. You can't hardly get anymore.
Well, what we found is that they make out of reclaimed timbers now, out of distilleries and things like that.
Okay.
So
So it'll be authentic.
you can still get the heart. Now, that's not in this phase. That's in a future phase.
Okay, so you're just going to replace with plywood now so you can walk on it.
Correct.
And clean all existing wood floors, so what does that entail? You're just going to sweep them?
And we actually have a spec for that, and it's very complicated. It involves using Murphy's oil soap.
Okay, so we're going to wash the floors.
Right,
Wet them off with Murphy's oil soap, okay?
right.
13, repair damaged plaster and plaster that is cut for installation of service. This phase of work shall be followed by a separate phase to include additional items of work specifically related to conservation of interior finishes. Interior walls and ceilings shall be protected from damage, cutting, etc., unless specifically authorized by the owner for cutting to install new services. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that?
Bob, let's go back to that other one just a minute. Why put plywood down when we can, if that wood's available to repair it, why not just do it one time instead of doing it twice? I don't believe I'm.
You want to address that, Lee?
Well, none of the interior finishes are really being finalized in this phase, and it was a budget decision to just spend a couple $100 versus a couple thousand to try to do that now. We figured that the next phase, when you actually come in and do the interiors, trim painting and wall finishes and so forth, that would be the time to have the kid glove people come in to do the wood floors. This literally was treated really as a stabilization phase and not as a finishing phase on the interior. If you want us to, we can certainly do that. It's certainly your call.
I'm fine with us doing, as they're saying, if there's issues with other parts of the floor that they find when they get in there, then we're going to be matching and trying to figure things out. Just let's stabilize it and then get into the nitty-gritty of finishing out correctly in a later phase.
I agree with that.
But I'd like to see at least a listing of what needs to be done in the future.
I brought something. I can talk about that after we're done if you like.
Lee, I think too, you had mentioned earlier that the flooring itself, there's not a lot of flooring.
No.
That would be needed to repair.
Not that much
Okay.
that we know of right now, yeah.
So this would be just getting it to the point where people can walk around without stepping through a hole in the floor. And
Make it safer, that's right.
are there any interior finishes that we're particularly trying to save? Is there any like period wallpaper or paint service or anything like that we're concerned about?
There's a lot of wallpaper in there, but a lot of it's damaged and peeled off, and some of it's already just fallen off the walls.
Yeah.
We haven't received any guidance to this so far as to whether the town wants to do actual restoration of those finishes or not. If we do, we would need to get a conservator involved in the project, and that bridge hasn't been crossed at this time. So the idea now is to get the house in a stable condition, not only structurally, but also just in terms of interior conditioning, so that there won't be any further damage to those finishes, and then that decision can be made later on after the usage of the building's determined for sure.
Okay. Well, I see we're repairing plaster walls. I know there's cracks and peeling and water damage and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if any attention is given to, do we even know if there's any original finishes in there? I mean, it could be wallpapered over 6 times. Who knows what's really there?
Yeah, there may very well be some in some places. There hasn't been a conservator come in and do a study on that at this time. So that would be, as I say, in the future when the building is finished out, that would be something that could be done if the town wants to. Some people want to go back and do that. Some people don't. They're almost afraid of what they'll find.
Yeah.
Alderman, at least hit the nail on the head. The goal of this whole project is really just to stabilize the house and be able to get people to actually be able to go on the inside, so we can get some traffic through there from time to time and get some feedback from the public on what they'd like to see of the house, or if there's some certain thing they'd like to know about. So we didn't want to spend a ton of money on the inside, not knowing exactly how we wanted to finish that out in the future. So that's why Lee has done a good job of trying to keep those expenses down on the inside and focus really on the structure, stability of the outside of the house to make it look good and structurally sound.
Right. Arrest the deterioration. Mm-hmm. Okay. 14, repair ceilings with plaster as necessary to provide a consistent appearance. Cover ceilings with gypsum board where noted. So where is it noted? Where are we putting up sheetrock?
There are a couple of rooms on the front of the house on the main level where the existing structural members for the floor above were not deemed adequate to carry the live load. So the ceilings are being removed in those areas for 2 reasons. 1, to sister up the structure in those rooms, and 2, to assist us with running power and sprinkler lines in the building. We're also removing the ceilings in the 2 rooms behind on the same level, but we don't have to sister those joists. The spans are shorter back there, but we are removing them for installation of services in those rooms, so we can get the sprinkler lines concealed to the extent possible in there. So those 4 rooms will have gypboard. The upper level, we had to do a little bit of cut on the ceilings in order to get some framing anchors in on the ends of the joists that are there, and do some other work like that. But of course, all the services will be coming from the attic on that level, so there's not nearly as much extensive replacement of ceilings on that level.
Okay. All right. Install an NFPA 13 dry pipe sprinkler system throughout entire facility with concealed piping except where noted. Patch finishes as needed. Crawl spaces, exterior covered areas such as porch shall also be sprinklered. Okay, I don't have any questions about that. Anybody have any questions?
No, it's self-explanatory.
Throughout the entire facility, so that means the basement, every level. Is the attic going to be sprinklered?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a dry pipe system.
All right. Thoroughly clean interior wood wainscots, casing, standing and running trim and doors, replace missing or irreparable door and trim components to match originals where noted on drawings. And I've been through the house once, just a quick run through, and it's been a while ago, so I don't remember, but how much replacement we're going to have to do inside?
I don't think there was much in this phase, really. Not very much.
Very clean interior wood wainscot. So what's involved in cleaning this trim and doors and everything? We're just going to wash them down, or
Yeah, we just want it to look presentable. We're not stripping paint or anything like that at this point.
okay. So just a wash and clean up. Add new concrete floor slab over Stego vapor barrier at basement where indicated. Add fire retardant vapor barrier at basement areas where noted. That basement floor is pretty irregular. Is it going to be leveled out, or are we just going to raise it to the highest common denominator? What are we going to do down there?
Yeah, there's a slab in the westernmost third of the house, and we hadn't planned really on doing much to that floor because, we are having to put in some footings in that area, so there will be some patching and so forth to be done, but I don't think we're replacing the slab in that area, though. It's more of a patching. You have the old milk trough in there, and we don't want it damaged, and so we tried to kind of not do very much to the floor in that area. The easternmost third is where most of the mechanical equipment and electrical service and everything will be, and we're putting a new concrete slab in that part of the building, and we're having to set the finished floor elevation pretty much based on head clearance for the mechanical equipment, and it's very, very close to, I think, the existing finished floor on the west end. And then in between, the section in the center under the central hall, in this phase, we weren't planning to put a slab because it wasn't required for any reason. So we're putting the vapor barrier down and putting some stepping stones across the way there so you can get from one side to the other for service.
So the main center module is not going to have a slab in it? Is that what you're telling me?
Right. It can if you want it to. It's just, once again, if it wasn't something that had to be done for the sake of the building, we just didn't put it in.
Yeah, it seems like we'd want to be consistent down there. And so the old existing slab, and if I remember right, it's cracked up pretty badly, not in real good shape. Am I mistaken there? Do I have a handle on that? The western section?
Do you remember, Aaron? I don't remember it being that terrible. You remember it being in very bad shape. Our recollection is that it was not. Maybe we're just used to looking at things that are. You're used to looking at great stuff, and we're used to looking at things that are really bad, and maybe this is somewhere in between.
It just seemed like it had some pretty big cracks running through it and that sort of thing, and a little bit of displacement. I could be wrong. As I said, I've been through there one time, and it was kind of a hurry, and it's been a long time ago. But
it may have been poured in more than one session as the area was used over time by the dairy. Mr. Russell said the dairy used that section of the basement.
Yeah, and I don't care if it's rough or scarred up or that kind of thing. I just wonder if it's structurally, and I'm sure there's no vapor barrier under it.
Right.
I would assume.
I wouldn't think so, no.
Have we done a radon test on this thing?
That would be out of our purvey. If one has been done, I'm not aware of it.
We have not done one so far, but we can certainly do that. Leon, going back to that, where your mechanical unit's going to be down in the basement, are you only going to put a slab underneath those areas that need the mechanical units, or are you going to do it over the entire eastern section?
Well,
of that house?
kind of in between, that we're going to do that entire room that you can walk around in. We'll have a slab in it, but there's that one part that was a coal bin that's kind of up high. No, we're not planning on excavating that down. We're going to leave that as a crawl space.
I mean, I think a lot of the character to the building or the basement is having those kind of old dirt floors that are in there with
Yeah.
the coal. So if we could leave as much of that as possible, I think it'd be just a good representation of what that house was 180 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't want to over excavate on the inside of the wall either. So
Yeah. Okay.
we just thought it would be better to leave that where it was.
Yeah, that Stego, now, just so you know, that the Stego vapor barrier, is it the 10 mil, what is the
15.
spec? 15 mil?
15.
So this is a really thick vapor barrier. You're not going to see any dirt floor
Well,
if we're putting
let
that
me-
down.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the underslab vapor barrier. It might be 10 mil for the other one. I can look it up if you want me to.
Okay, it was to be pretty sturdy if you're going to have foot traffic in there, and I wonder if we want to have dirt floors, if we want to put it down at all in that area, because we're not, if we don't have a radon problem, which I wouldn't,
Here's where he's talking about the vapor barrier.
Well, if they, during the abatement, I would have thought that they would have done that then, wouldn't they? When they're checking for lead and.
I'll have to go back and look at the report and see what they came up with, if they did or not.
I have the page right here if you want to. Maybe he can find it easier.
what do we got here?
There's the vapor barrier and
Yeah,
exposed
I'm
installation.
looking at it. It's vapor barrier and exposed installation areas. TS 14 FR Tough Scrim Poly by Americover. I don't know if the 14, if that's the mill or not. It's a Class A flame spread 5 material. We used it on Westwood and it was pretty tough. And it's white, the product we use, so you're right, you won't see the dirt. It's not like clear plastic poly or something.
Okay, so we got vapor barrier under concrete slabs.
That's the 15
6
mil
mil.
Stego.
Well, it says here, WTR less than 6 mil as tested by STM. Vapor barrier must have the following qualities.
It's right there.
The vapor barrier products, they go at 15 mil. Okay. Vapor barrier must have, okay, so it must be a minimum of 6 mils. It's got 15 mils, so it's, okay, so that's just under the slab though, right? Vapor barrier
Stego wrap.
exposed installation areas. Tough scrim poly by Americover. So that's going to be where the open dirt floors are. It's going to be this,
Right.
and what is that? TS14? Is that, we don't know what that means, right?
Anybody want to Google that on their phone and see if they can find what the mill thickness is on that?
Is this going to be, yeah, geez, are we going to be masticing this to the walls? Are we trying to do a sealed?
That's the idea, yes. They do term bars on it.
So we anticipate using this basement as part of the
No, it's separate from the house. It's going to remain separate from the house, isn't it?
Well, you have a separate entryway into the basement for sure, but I could certainly see in the future, if you have some kind of tours that you're going to do of the house, the character of that basement is really interesting, you know, what the story is going to say.
Yes.
So I think, we'd want to have access to it of some kind and get people down there. So that's the question of how we need to go about doing that. And I guess, Lee, just from I don't know all this Stego and all that means, but is there a reason we need to use that over those dirt areas? Is there a structural component to it or something that we would want to have that there?
It's to keep relative humidity in a controlled state in the basement.
Okay.
I think even with it covered, you still can get an idea of what, because it'll be an unsmooth surface. You kind of see, it really does add to the understanding the story of that house and that people actually lived in that. And I would hate for us to just put a,
Well, we could do this. We could always put the vapor wrap down, the vapor barrier, and put dirt on top of it.
You read
And
my mind, because we do things like that if we need to, just for tricks of the eye. And I think we've talked about this at some point in the past, where if the museum ended up wanting to interpret the lower level, they would do the west room and possibly interpret the center hall area as a root cellar, in which case your idea, Alderman Markley, is a good one, to just cover the vapor barrier with dirt at that point. So you have the best of both.
Two layers of. Okay, we found a tough scrim here. It is a 14 mil 5-ply extrusion laminated reinforced film containing 2 layers of white film and 1 layer of black film. So it's going to be opaque, very, very thick, and tough. That would be a pretty wear resistant surface. So yeah, I'm okay with that. I think, yeah, if we could just cover it back up and get back to our, if someone did want to use that as part of an interpretive element.
It's kind of entertaining that we're doing that. Let's cover it and then put more dirt on top of it.
Yeah,
But
we got to
think that's
find just the right dirt to put on
that's a
top of
good
it too.
solution.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay, 18, remove existing storm windows. Every new and existing individual wood window unit shall have its own new commercial grade individual storm window secondary glazing unit installed at the exterior, which we went over. Now, is that just real quickly, can you describe that product a little bit? Is it an aluminum frame? What does that look like?
It's a very narrow profile aluminum frame that mounts to the outside face of the window frame, and it has a divider bar at the same elevation as the meeting rail of the double hung window. If you want to see what they look like, we've got them on Westwood. We put them on the James Park House downtown. You really have to kind of go up to them to even see them. They're pretty effective.
Great.
The company is called Allied Window. It's a commercial product. It's not a residential grade material.
Is this anodized to match?
They can be anodized, but since we don't know what color these will be, I think we said custom color to match the paint, but I'm going from memory right there.
You find anything on that?
There's the secondary glazing units.
Okay. No less otherwise noted. Tempered units. Tempered units. Stained layer glass. By code. Frame for extruded aluminum with keyed miter to corners. Baked enamel finish colored inside and out to match adjacent trim. Okay. Okay, great. So colored inside and out to match adjacent trim. So color to be determined, I guess. So that's something we're all going to have to work on. Repair and reinforce structural members where damaged or modified. That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Anybody have any questions there?
No.
What do you anticipate that's going to entail? I know you said you're going to sister on, double up the joists on the main front floor ceiling.
We're cutting the span on the spanning members of the first floor with a new post and beam system. And we're sistering the main level, and there's a lot of work in the attic, scotching up the rafters and kind of tying them to the ceiling joists.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing up there that's.
It's pretty light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't pass code in Farragut today, I can guarantee you that. So you're adding, so you're going to run a beam down mid-span in the basement under the main floor joists? Is that the front section?
Yes, front and back and under the main level floor.
Okay, now we're going to use material to look like the existing stuff, rough sawn dimensional lumber and posts and stuff like that to go back in there. We're not just going to put some whitewood.
I don't remember what the shoring posts were in the.
It's going to be permanent though, right? This is going to be a permanent part of the house.
I have to cheat and look at the textbook here.
Yeah, I'm at a disadvantage. I haven't seen that. Haven't had a chance to read the specs. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any planed lumber in the house besides the trim. I mean, it's all old rough cut sawmill lumber, right?
Yeah, it's not, certainly not dressed to today's standards. Yeah, he's got 6x6 wood posts in the basement.
We're not just going to stick a dressed 6x6 treated pine post down there, though, are we? What are we going to put down there?
No, that's what we're going to do.
Seriously? So have a big Cox-Dry #1 stamp on the side?
Well, we can distress them if we need to, I guess. We can paint them or whatever, but, I mean, they have to be structurally graded lumber, so.
I don't know. How y'all feel about that?
We're talking
You know
about
what
in the
You
basement.
understand what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I think distressing it would be the,
Can y'all make them look? See, one of the things we do is when we put something new in an old building, we don't try to make it look falsely historic, so that we don't give the impression to someone that it's actually older than it is. So we don't really do a lot of that unless we're trying to match a piece of existing trim or something. But if we're just inserting a new member that's holding something up, we tend to make it look newer more than we do make it look older. That's just a philosophical thing in preservation. It's, I don't know if you'd call it truth in design or whatever, but for example, when we did the work at the Blunt Mansion, we actually had them engrave the date 1993 in each timber that went in, so that in the future, whoever took the siding back off would know which pieces, when they had been installed. So we can do that sort of distressing thing if that's your preference. It's not something we typically would do on a modern intervention in a historic structure, but it's up to you guys. So yeah, I mean, if you want it to look rough, they could. They said they could skin it with something to make it look rougher when it goes in.
I think it's, if that is, this is this project has your name on it, and if that is something that is integrity of your name, I'm not interested in compromising that. If that's kind of what we say with that.
I'll still put my name on it if we skin those things. I mean, we're talking about in the basement right now, so it's, the shoring that's going in there is nothing that would have been there originally. There's going to be several posts in that basement to scotch that floor up, so I think it's going to look like shoring posts. I don't think it's going to look like old shoring posts, if you know what I mean.
I don't have a problem with leaving it new, so that I think someone looking down there will say, oh, good, this is a safe building. I don't have an issue with it not dressing it up.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Install supplemental framing, number 20, as indicated on drawings to strengthen existing framing systems. And I think we've pretty much talked about that. Just jack and shore and sister and do what's necessary to make it,
Right.
keep it from falling down. Remove existing mechanical systems, install new units, ductwork, grills, and registers. How many systems are we going to have?
There'll be 3 systems.
3 systems, one for each. So it's actually going to be one in the basement.
Yes.
So I would think we would want a vapor barrier and try to contain that area a little bit.
Yeah, it's conditioned space in this scheme. And the registers in this phase will just be standard registers. We're not talking about doing decorative grills or anything in this phase, although they could easily be replaced in the future during a finishes phase.
You mean in the basement?
Anywhere. I mean, we're
Okay.
just putting in new systems at this time. We don't have anything in the budget at this point to do decorative cast grills or anything like that. Very easy to swap those out later, though.
Okay, and and I guess the systems are spec'd out here, what SEER and efficiency, is it going to be gas heat or heat pumps? What are we putting in there?
I believe they're all heat pumps.
Okay.
You want me to tell you the sizes or anything?
If you got it handy. This is all going to be brought up to the 2012 Energy Code. What standard are we bringing this to?
2012. It's already been reviewed by plans review.
I bet that's fun.
That's what he's got there, split system heat pumps,
Okay.
I assume is what.
Yeah. I think we found section 2.06, split system heat pumps.
By Train or Lennox. Air unit with blue.
Looks like about a 1 ton in the basement, about a 3 ton main level, and about a 3.5 ton upper level.
What was the upper level again?
3.5.
44 MVH sensitive cooling, so about 3.5.
A 3 on the main.
Yes. 34.8 MVH.
I didn't know they made a 1 ton unit. That's a little bitty unit for that basement. Of course, now the basement's going to be easy to cool, but heating.
13 MVH on that one. Yeah. You're right. There won't be much load at all down there, especially cooling load. So it doesn't take a very big unit.
Do you think 1 ton will, how many, do we have any idea how many? Because it's going to be virtually the same square footage as the upper floors, a little less cubic footage because you got low ceilings, and it's earth sheltered, but
It's earth sheltered. Probably half of it is earth sheltered.
yeah. Are we going to insulate those walls at all?
No.
Just brick walls?
No. It's impractical to insulate walls and maintain the historic integrity.
Yeah, for sure.
Besides, they're so thick that the effect on the heating and cooling isn't nearly what you would think it would be. We lose a lot more energy through infiltration and through the attic than we would through those
Yeah.
walls.
Oh, that's why then.
Yeah, wow, 1 ton. The cost between a 1 ton and a 2 ton unit, the unit itself is pretty negligible from what I understand.
Our engineer is going to err on the side of being slightly undersized rather than oversized
wanna
on
be
cooling
oversized.
because of the moisture concerns, especially in a basement.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would rather that unit run more often than to cycle off
Yeah.
and on. So
Okay.
I trust him. I've worked
Okay,
with him
so
for
they've done
30
their-
years.
They've done their homework.
He's
Okay.
he's worked on a lot of historic structures for us.
Okay.
This will be the one he messes up, but
Don't say that. 22, remove existing plumbing and piping systems where noted and install a new fire line service to the building, which is necessary for the sprinkler system, I'm sure. But existing plumbing and piping systems where noted. So it's cast iron drain pipes in there, isn't it?
there are, yes, all that's coming out.
All of it.
There won't be any plumbing in the building at the end of this phase.
Okay. So basically just tearing it all out, but nothing going back.
That's correct.
Other than the sprinkler.
Right.
So we're going to have to set a porta potty outside if anybody wants to go over there at this phase.
I
There's
think
not going to
that-
be an operating bathroom anywhere.
I think that's Ms. Stuhl's plan, is to put a porta potty out there on days when it's open to the public.
My daughter, me know in the next phase that we've talked about is actually putting a restroom facility outside as part of that third phase that we would go to. So Lee and I have talked about this a lot over the last a year or so about how to have a facility for the building that's ADA compliant and everything else that you need. And so that's the goal is the next phase is to put that restroom facility outside. And then if we decide to do something upstairs, maybe offices or something like that, there is an area that's considered the bathroom now that has a tub and things like that. I know we don't need a tub necessarily for that. So we could reconfigure and put maybe a restroom upstairs in the top floor that would service any kind of offices that may be up there, if that's what we decide to do. Again, look, not wanting to spend any money on the interiors yet without knowing exactly what we wanted to do. But that's the long-term goal of restroom facilities or plumbing facilities for the building at this point.
My question is, do we need to anticipate that plumbing and have the plumbing done during the stabilization, or is it going to cost more to do it later? I'm a little confused on that.
Well, we're just talking about one bathroom.
If you got to do sheetrock and everything anyway,
Yeah, we're not doing anything to the interior at this time
It's
other than
minimal
tearing
then?
things out.
There could be some duplicated cost a little bit, but it would be very minimal.
yeah.
So there's actually a bathroom on the main floor and upstairs at present, and there's a little
Yes.
bathroom that's cobbled in there on the main floor.
Right.
Is it in the kitchen addition or is it in the main house?
Main house.
It's in the main
Main
house.
house.
Okay.
It's just to the left of the entry hall in the back quadrant.
How do y'all feel about that? Not having any plumbing in there, because we do have existing plumbing. We've got sewer and water to the house. Of course, we don't know what
We don't
the
know how we're
usage
gonna do
is,
that.
the future usage is, where we'd want that bathroom or how we'd want it configured. So that does make it kind of a,
Yeah, if we capped it down below, I mean, whenever the next phase where we do the inside finishing, you're going to be doing the walls and floors. So, I mean, if you're having to replumb, you're going to be cutting in anyway, aren't you?
well, we're going through and we're replastering the walls and we're plastering the ceilings and getting everything, the envelope closed basically. And then we're going to come back in and cut it all up to put in.
Possibly or possibly not.
Yeah.
I really don't want to get ahead of ourselves until we really know, and we're not going to know until we can get the citizens' input. At this point, I know it's a little bit more money, as he said, but I would rather do it right than to do it wrong and then have to rip it out or be constrained by where we've put the bathroom. And I don't. We're throwing darts at a wall at that point, and I don't know that that's a good idea.
I don't think we need to tear out the drainage for the sewer or the incoming. You know, if you cap it off down there
That's what you'll be
where
doing.
it can be used.
Being capped.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just removing everything inside the walls, basically, all the existing kitchen too, because we know the kitchen's not authentic.
Kitchen's going away.
Yeah. That whole addition's coming up.
Larry, are you waiting on me or am I waiting on you at this point? Are you looking something up?
No, I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. Upgrade electrical systems as required. I'm not sure what that means. Replace panel boards, feeder conductors, and branch circuit wiring to be in accordance with National Electrical Code and to be equipment that is readily serviced. Install egress lighting systems as required by applicable codes. Coordinate installation of owner security system. Install communication system raceways and wiring to extent indicated on drawings. Install communication system. So what are we going to do? What are we doing here?
We've got about 6 sheets of electrical drawings. I mean, it's all new service, all new branch circuits, new lighting, new conduit for future rough in for data to the extent that the town's IT guy asked. We don't really know what it's being used for, so we put some pipes from the basement to the attic just so they could get some routers up in the attic.
Just basically a duct connecting.
Yeah, raceways. We've got floor outlets on the main level. We've got, I would have to consult the drawings really to go through it in detail, but everything's new. That's really what you need to know. And we put in as many outlets as we felt were reasonable without knowing what the usages of the rooms would be, knowing that it would be easy to add outlets on the main level at any time because you've got no ceilings in the basement.
Yeah.
And
Of course, the main walls inside are brick.
That's
the main
right.
cross walls are brick. So,
it wasn't easy.
yeah. So how are we doing this?
We have risers in each corner of the building. Two of the corners have cabinets in them, and the idea was in the future phase to enclose the other two risers in the corners. Those are not only for electrical, but for sprinkler as well, so that we could get sprinkler systems and electrical up to the upper levels into the attic.
So when you say risers, what are they?
Pipes and conduits. Because they're the only hollow wall in the building has the main beam, support beam at both top and bottom. So you're not going to drill through that for your systems. So we literally had no place else to go. And then once we got up into the corners, the structural engineer allowed us to notch the framing minimally and came up with a detail to reinforce the notches. So we could move laterally with conduit and sprinkler lines and then get into the joist spaces on the main level, for example. So from those points on, it's concealed.
Okay, so the outlets, how do you put an outlet in a brick wall? How do you get wire to a?
That's why we used floor outlets.
Okay, so it's going to be floor outlets.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then on the second floor?
Second floor, I believe, is also floor outlets. Because once we got to the structure of the second floor, because of that notch, we could move the conduit this way and then go that way in each cavity. So we had some flexibility.
So we can't run them into baseboards, pop the baseboards off and run wire behind the baseboards?
That was one of the things we talked about doing.
It's hard to get a floor outlet in the right place. Wherever you put it, it's going to be,
Yeah,
In the middle of the floor.
yeah.
yeah, we put floor outlets in.
So where are they located? Are they located around the perimeter pretty much, or like where you would have wall outlets?
May I come up and show you?
Yes, please.
This is the upper level. Camera clear. So we've got here,
No, just next.
here. Any bullseye of
Yeah, basically 6 feet out of each corner. It's pretty limited, but we can get onto these and add if we need to.
There's always a way.
That's always a way. We haven't been stumped yet.
You have to remember, though, we don't have a program for the building, so
Yeah.
we're trying to get, it's always easy to add more if you want to.
Extension cords.
Extension cords, yeah.
I didn't say that. Not in this story.
Thank you.
Sure.
So what size service are we putting in? 200, 400?
Again, I'm going to have to cheat and refer to my textbook here. This one y'all remembers. $400.
400. Yeah, I would think that would handle it.
400 amp
Of course, it's all electric heat though, right? It's all heat pumps, so.
heat pumps.
Is there gas service there?
We're not using a gas service. There is a gas line available.
There's a gas meter on the house right now.
We didn't want to put the penetrations in the envelope, visible penetrations for gas furnaces.
Yeah, and we don't have chimneys anymore, so it almost looks like gas flue pipes on top of that one chimney over there.
It does. I
on the
should say
east,
that's probably what that is.
Northeast corner.
Yeah.
So 400 amp service with all electric and a water heater. It's not going to have a whole lot of excess capacity, will it?
It's a pretty small building.
Yeah. Okay. But if we have special usages and holiday lighting and things like that, and heat and air is going to draw, heat and air and water heater is going to draw. Do we have any idea what those loads are? We got 7 tons, what, 6.5 tons, 7 tons, and I don't know how many BTUs of heat we're going to have to generate to.
I didn't bring our consultants to this meeting. I can get answers for you if you have any specific questions about the systems.
Yeah, 400 amps should. I just don't know what we're going to be dealing with in the future, and if we have events and you need to hook stuff up to it.
The systems
we could
are,
always set up systems outside of the house to be able to connect, similar to that we do in other parks and things like that, to get power if we wanted to have major events behind the facility or on the park or even connecting into the house. So there's other ways for us to get power out there if need be. I think what we're looking at, I know Lee had all of his different engineers go through the house. We're really just looking to try to figure out the basics that we thought we needed right now without knowing what that use was going to be.
well, and there's no kitchen
Right.
in the house, and if you think about, what was it, 7.5 tons compared to like a residential situation, 400 amp, just off the top of my head, seems pretty
That's a
Pretty
big. That's a
decent.
big service. Yeah.
What square footage is this?
Each level's about 1,500 square feet.
That would be more than adequate for anything that you would do at the house. I'm just thinking about future use. If we have events or something like that, it might be good to have some excess capacity there.
It'd be nice to have, like you said, a panel in the landscape for things like that, installed in the parks phase. I think you should.
A separate meter.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a separate
Right.
service. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Install light fixtures as indicated. So what are we going to put in there? Just a porcelain bare bulb, key pull chain. What's going in there?
Well, one step up from that, they're pretty much schoolhouse globes.
Okay. Just basic room lights up when you flip the switch.
Yeah, and we're using wireless switches.
Do tell. Explain.
They're wall-mounted switches that control the lights without hardwire.
Okay. So lights have a receiver in them. Well, that gives a lot of flexibility, doesn't it?
That
As far as-
helps. It's one of the few things where technology helped us.
Gee, do they make those in three-way?
I think so. I think so.
Anybody know? Three-way wireless switches where you can turn them off from one switch and on from another.
I think so.
Okay, 25, selective preparation of the building, including limited removal of certain building components, removal of debris, shoring, protection of existing components to remain, and other requirements as defined in the contract documents. And where's that? Is that in the construction manual, the specs? Where's that spelled out?
It is. The whole front end is well, Yeah, if you look at the table of contents, we have sections such as alteration project procedures, quality requirements, temporary facilities and controls, execution requirements, cleaning, construction waste management, and disposal. So we also have sections on existing conditions, building preparation, demolition, site demolition, and one called protection of historic construction materials. So we have an inordinate number of pages in the project manual devoted just to those kinds of things. And I bet
That's how
the
much is
bidders
devoted to.
probably hate reading all that stuff because there's a lot of unusual requirements in there for protection measures on a project like this.
Okay, so the existing doors to the house, basically everything that's there is going to stay. If it's got a lock, it's falling apart. You're going to put a lock on there that you can open and close with a key. And we're basically looking at stabilization at this point, except for the windows and the storm windows.
Yeah, I think it said there's an alarm system too, so.
Yes.
Well, they're going to coordinate with we're going to be responsible for that, it looks like. Coordinate installation of owner's security system. So it looks like we're going to be furnishing the security system.
We already have one on the building currently.
That's right. The town would be working with their security contractor to install a security system.
Okay, well, that gives you a pretty good picture of what it is we're doing. Now, I noticed there were in the contract documents, there are some questionnaires for prospective contractors. And one of the things was, how many of this kind of project has the contractor done before? So I didn't see any response to that. Could we address that?
That was included in the bids. That was submitted, and I did send out the qualifications.
That was in a separate document you sent on Monday, I think, Darrell. Is that correct?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see that or review that. So if Merritt could address that, so you guys have done this kind of restoration work before, and where and
Look for
actually cannot comment on that.
Merritt's.
Our office that puts that together.
The qualifications.
This is the qualification sheet.
Wait a minute, I might have a copy of it.
Scroll down once.
I'm not sure if I sent it in there. Oh, you got it up on your screens. Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to find the right place, Lee.
I saw the blank form, but I didn't see the response.
Yeah, I didn't bring a copy of that, but they provided their qualifications, and I'm not easily impressed, and I was impressed.
Back up one screen there. What did I see here? Okay, area of knowledge. Let's see, area of knowledge, flash joint. Wasco. I know Wasco, the brick mason. Okay, on down a little bit. Okay, notable projects. Let's see, Old Knox Courthouse, Knox, Tennessee Church. And who is this we're looking at here right now? John?
Go back up, Allison.
That looks like Wasco.
Horace
Horace
Norman.
Norman's personal resume. Horace has been with Wasco for years.
Okay, so this is for the brick restoration and whatnot. And what they've done Old Knox Church. What was it? Back to that. Church Street United Methodist Church. That's a pretty nice project. James Park House, Knox, Tennessee, and Greystone. Okay, so
I think you're still in Wasco.
This is more
section.
Wasco information.
What they did, Alderman Markley, was they provided qualifications for their own firm, Merit Construction, and then they provided qualifications for many of the specialty major subcontractors, and I think that's what you're into right now.
Which is what the qualifications are outlined in each one of these. where
Right.
they needed some
And this,
specials.
is this what you printed off, or did somebody give you this?
I asked for a printout of what they had sent us because I need paper.
Oh, I'm the same way, and I got scheduled stuff on the
For
computer.
everything
that-
that's in here, they have qualifications they outline that are required for whoever is doing the work, I assume as a subcontractor, correct? Is that,
They included subcontractors in
Yes.
their
so,
qualifications.
and those, that's,
But as far as Merit Construction themselves, do we have an overview of projects similar to this that they've completed?
It was in their package, yes. It was in their bid package.
I was thinking I'd sent that out as well.
we
Well,
have quite a few.
And I got, first of all, it was sent out and it blew up my email, 'cause it was like 150 megabytes or something like that. And so I didn't get it until, I think, Saturday. I was able to find something I could download, or Monday, and then we were leaving town Tuesday, so I haven't seen most of this stuff, unfortunately.
That's that one right there.
But Darrell, you have, you feel like these guys, it's not their first rodeo, they
That's
can,
correct.
they're gonna,
I think you just were on it right then. If you scroll down there, I think that's it. You keep going down a couple more pages.
It's getting the scroll of death.
Alderman, just so you know, we obviously worked with Lee on trying to find qualified bidders for this project. We wanted to find people that are contractors that had done historic preservation work in the past that we felt confident could do this type of work. We were able to get two very qualified bidders. I know Lee and Darrell both have gone through all of their qualifications, gone through all of the projects that they've had, as well as their subs, because that's an important part of this project, is what those subs are going to be working on. And I think they both feel very confident in everyone that's going to be working on this project. So everything that's included as part of this background information is certainly there for anybody to look through. But certainly we have thoroughly vetted who is going to be doing this project and feel confident that that Merit with their bid is certainly able to do this project well.
That's right. And
That,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, I'm sorry, I'm comfortable with that.
well, I know Merit is a very well-respected name in the general contracting industry here in this area, and don't have any questions about that. I wasn't aware that they did restoration projects either, so I just wanted to see some background in that area. But
Well, they did the Bijou Theater project for us, and that was two different phases, about 10 years apart. And very interesting and involved project, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, they included several projects they had done, some of which were on the National Register. For us, as much as we respect and Merit, the companies that could make or break the project, really, if you may or may not agree, are the masonry sub and the window restoration sub and these kinds of people. And when we have a project like this that's so specialized, our worry is because it's low bid, we won't get good, well, I shouldn't say good, we may not get people who have as much experience in these areas. We were very pleasantly surprised when we found out that Wasco was doing the masonry and Bronson was doing the windows. These are the companies that they're very good at what they do. There are many others, I'm sure, that can do it too, but when you're in a low bid situation, you wonder if you're going to get those kinds of people, and we did. So I think you have a good bird in the hand, is the way I look at it.
Excellent. Well, I thank you for taking the time to come down here. I feel more comfortable with it. It's all kind of came down. We were handed a $1.5 million contract and hadn't seen the specs, hadn't seen the scope of the work, and so forth. So I definitely wanted to get to a comfort level with it, and I appreciate your time.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, I have no more questions.
None.
I do have a question with the motion. Should we have a subject to the review of the color palette and getting updates on
The motion to,
I don't know whether you want to amend it or how we want to word it, but we do want to make sure we see the color palette.
Again, I
You
don't
have
think
my
you,
word.
I don't think you have to amend your motion. I think we understand that the board wants us to come back with a color palette and also any monthly updates that we give you in case there is any kind of change orders that need to be done.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second.
We have both.
Yes.
More discussion?
I have none.
None.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Congratulations.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to remind everyone, the TML district meeting, I believe, is at 10 a.m. It's on the 13th. It says it in our, but I assume it's at 10. I read that somewhere, but we'll get some clarity on that.
Yeah, we'll send plenty of reminders out to you, but you should RSVP if you're interested in going, just so
Where's
they
that?
have a head count. Downtown in the city county building.
That's all I had.
Me too.
You got your paper.
Okay.